Hey, everybody. Good to see you. I'm so excited to have you here for Let's Get Real. It is a crazy week. I'm leaving this week for Content Marketing World. I have not been to a conference in I don't know how long, and I've actually not been on the guest side of a conference in even longer. So if you don't know my history, I used to be a convention and trade show manager. That was my former career, my first career out of college a long time ago, when I lived in Chicago and when I lived in New York. So I'm very, very excited to go tomorrow and see a bunch of friends that I know on Twitter, but I've never actually seen them. So get ready, people. I'm coming with some hugs. I can't wait. And I'm glad that they've got a vaccination policy and testing policy, and everything's going to be safe. So I'm so excited. But before I go, I'm really excited to introduce you today to Jason Davis, who is my guest from the Rebrand Agency, a fellow Louisvillian. Jason and I know each other from the Chamber of St. Matthews. We've met a couple of times and once face-to-face in the same room, but a lot of virtual. I'm going to be on his podcast in a few weeks. So I'm excited for that. But today, let me tell you a little bit about Jason. This is what he says. When I asked him for a bio, he said, everything is an ad. Think about your website, your business cards, apparel, email signature, what you say, how you're perceived, and the visual identity you adopt to associate with your brand. Clearly defining the why, how, and what of your business replaces all doubt and confusion about your brand. More importantly, it boosts the confidence and optimism you have about your business's future, allowing you to attract more customers. So I'm going to bring Jason on. Jason, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I did your bio and I read a little bit about what it means when you're talking about great branding and your strategy and what the Rebrand Agency does. But tell me a little bit in your words, who you are and what you do for those listening.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. The short answer is strategy. We just did an episode recently where a lot of people will ask us, like, we need a digital strategy for our business. Like, no, you need a strategy for your business. Branding agencies have to sit really close in tandem with that strategy to sort of understand, because we're developing a message that the marketing teams and your sales team are going to start to echo out. And so if somebody you are reaching out to is a prospect and they go to your website and that message isn't there, but they heard it from Joe, the salesperson, or if they saw, Nancy, the marketer or whatever for that exercise, it's like, it's a broken message, that you're saying two different things or three different things. And sometimes we come across a lot of places that need a lot of help with that. So that's the short answer, but we develop your company's identity to help you better communicate. That's really what it is. It's communication. You're buying ads, you're talking to people regardless of the platform or medium.
Right. Regardless of the platform or media. I think that's the key point, is that, so this is where my next question goes, is when does a company need to engage with a branding agency like Nerdbrand? And I know my answer. Let's see if I'm right.
Well, it kind of makes me a little nervous to see what you're going to say, because honestly, at any time, because we all have a business where you've got to go and you got to hit the ground running now. And you really don't have a lot of time to sit sometimes and do this big overarching plan, because some businesses have already been established. Some are trying to get established. If you're not established yet, you don't have a name, then yes, immediately. But if you are already going and you're kind of feeling like it's stale, if you feel like you're not having a lot of success with your digital ads or platforms, then that would be the time as well. The big answer, of course, is please have a budget. You got to plan the budget so we know what we're doing, so that we know how to engage.
Well, that's a great point. And I think you bring up a good point, that you really can engage with an agency, a branding agency, really at any time. I think some people might think, well, I'm already off and running. Is it too late? No, of course not. Because what if your strategy is off? What if you're headed down the wrong road? So, one thing that I would do, if we're going to go back in time, I would have engaged with the branding strategy at the beginning. Here I am. I started this company, 520 East Brands. We named this company after our address in New York City because we lived at 520 East 72nd Street. Well, then I moved here and realized, the area code is 502. So oopsie. But now here I am all these years later. It's my Twitter name. I've been using this for 12 years. So here I am with this brand. But let me ask you this. What if I were ever to rebrand? How hard is it to rebrand a company that's been in business for over a decade who maybe needs to make some edits? Would you do like an overhaul right at the beginning, or would you sort of piecemeal it? What if you're rebranding?
It kind of depends on the personalities that own the business and the audience that is working, they're your customer base. A good example is Fusionsoft, rebranded themselves to Heap. Don't know if anybody knew that or not. So that would be an example of maybe not how to go about it. It's not a light switch. You can't flip it and expect your audience to know or recognize you that way. It just doesn't happen. So you can end up losing and disconnecting from the base that you have that you want to keep. So sometimes, that's where brand equity versus value kind of is a difference there, because, people recognize the name. So I would not change the name of 520 East Brands at all. Its visual appeal and look, shouldn't be limited to the area code or zip code or anything like that. You don't want to do that ever in business. For example, Nerd Brand is in 4 or 5 market cities across the country. So that's something that we tell people, and they're like, really? It's like, well, we don't have offices. I don't have an office in LA, in Austin, Nashville, all these places. I don't have them there. But we have customer bases there that bring in those referrals and leads because they know the name, they remember the name. So it's more about establishing your name and making that memorable than it is anything. So it could be an answer of the both and for your question, not necessarily this one answer will take care of all of it. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah. So let's talk about some do's and don'ts. Whether you're starting a business, you're mid-business, you're rebranding, wherever stage you are, what are some do's and don'ts that you would give, like off the top of your head, to some business owners out there when it comes to their branding?
Don't focus on your website. Don't focus on your logo. Focus on your message. Focus on what you're about. We always tell people we help you better articulate and define your why. And your why is why you get up in the morning and why I should buy from you. These are kind of important philosophical questions to answer, but honestly, you're in business because I hope it makes you happy. Anybody that wakes up in the morning, and if you own your own business and you wake up in the morning and you dread Monday, you should find another job. You should not do this. Hopefully also the answer isn't, to make money, because that's an outcome. That's not a passion. So that's what we try to do. Many times we meet with people and they say their passion and they have articulated their message. We hold everything up, as Mitch says, with a mirror. Mitch is our creative director. Everything is looked through this closely. So we try to pull that away, and we can look at your brand in a different way and go, oh, well, you just said it. It's that. So now we just need to put context around that. And then that's how you can develop a message. So
fascinating.
yeah. Don't get focused on the little thing. It's not a little thing, but don't get focused on the deliverables. Don't get focused on tactics, because that's what those are. It's not, you're not there yet.
And we've talked about in our chamber leads group, that I'm kind of like way down the line in this, what I do from because we are very tactical. We're implementing all those decisions that have been made before, as far as your brand, your strategy, your website, your logo, all those things, and the persona. And then it comes to me, and my job is to carry that out. So we've had people who are like, okay, I'm going to go to Jason and then immediately to Shane. I'm like, hold on there, slugger. you got a few steps to put in before I can actually develop that persona and create a human behind the keyboard. Otherwise, all I'm doing on Twitter is just tweeting out sales tweets, and that's fruitless. I mean, that's just useless. I'm not going to do that. I won't take on a client that just needs me to tweet out sales tweets. We're about developing a true personality and creating what's been created as far as the brand and the brand strategy, carrying that forward.
Right. Yeah.
So how much of somebody's personality do you develop when you are, or do you infiltrate into a brand you're developing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even if it's like one person that's in charge of the company, or if it's the dreaded committee, which sometimes you just have to deal with. Like, we're in higher ed, so there's more than one person that's sitting at the table. but I like blue, but the brand's red, but I like blue, but I like blue that's sky blue, not the blue that's UK blue, that. So you have to get through those conversations so that when the changes occur, nobody freezes up and because everybody's afraid of change. And we kind of execute on those, when we start to execute on things, it's like very different. So we have to get to know the personalities to be able to judge the temperature and the pace of how these things are going to occur, before they get to you. Because, if it's just dumped in your lap and you're kind of asking the question, what am I saying? I don't want to be, you don't want to be loud just for the sake of being loud. That doesn't work.
Right.
You want to project value. So it's something that to get to know the person, if they're easy to work with and all that, it's easy to talk to. And that message is something that when they say something, if you're a business owner and you're saying it, your internal team will say it, and then that will reflect externally.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things where we've had a challenge is like, maybe the owner of the company, they're very passionate about their brand. They know what they're selling, they know what they stand for, they know who they are, but their voice is a little, they might be a little introverted. They might be a little bit of, I don't really want to put myself out there. And so for them, outsourcing is beneficial because, I always say this is no time to be humble. You're fantastic. Let's tell the world about it. And so by having a little bit of a buffer, by outsourcing their social voice, we can develop that personality and kind of bring some of those things out and maybe even embellish them a little bit if needed. I'm sure you've had that experience too, where like the owner of the company or whoever your client is definitely passionate about what they do, but maybe it doesn't come through so much with them directly, right?
Yeah, the owner of the CEO of a $50 million, $100 million a year company is not going to have the time or be able to engage with us and us project them as the personality of the business and then take that approach. That's not realistic. They just can't. But there is still a core message that started when the company was young that sometimes over the years gets lost as you continue to do these things and as culture changes and as the channels evolve. Sometimes the brand message, it has to evolve or it has to change. Like the voice is always the same, but the tones become different. And so we have to, sometimes we come into those type of situations on those types of clients at that level. What is the tone that maybe you are trying to project now that we can, like, if you're not funny, stop telling jokes. If you sound like Winnie the Pooh, then okay, oh bother. But don't try to be something you're not. So we try to help you figure that out. Like, who you are. We're not there to figure out who you are. You know who you are. You'll tell us. Right. We're here to help you figure out how to tell the world who you are and why you exist. And I think that goes for any size company. But no, yeah, when it comes to personal brands, it depends on the stage that you're at and the personality. How big do you want your organization to be? So I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of hard. It's hard to answer because of it's a person.
Right. And sometimes you want that person's voice to come through the brand, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes the brand needs its own persona, its own personality that has nothing to do with the company owner. Maybe the direction of the brand is to go a different way. So it's fun to work with a branding agency like yours where we can develop those personas together, and you can kind of think big picture, how does this tie into every facet of the brand? And I can take it and run just in my lane, which I enjoy.
Yeah. Well, and there's always going to be somebody that is front facing. There's always going to be a person that is the face of the company. Some CEOs, they like being behind the curtain. That's great. Like you said, they're an introvert. I'm actually an introvert. I know it seems weird, but I am. And, but I have to be out in front. But also out in front is Mitch, so we're partners in crime in that way. Jonathan, who's my business partner, he's like, no, I want to be behind the camera. Leave me alone. So you kind of have to figure that out. And then we can work with that person that is client facing or are always, facing to the public. So there is that approach that could be taken as well. Hopefully that person you have put out there to project your company's brand and image, is appropriate to the brand, so it's something to really be careful with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jason, I want to thank you for sharing all these great tips with us. For those who are not familiar with Jason or rebrand, check them out. They work with clients all over the country, maybe even all over the world. Do you have international clients yet?
We are talking to somebody, I believe, in England,
Okay.
but it's a little weird dealing with anything offshore right now.
Sure. I get that. Absolutely. Well, for anyone around the country looking for some help on your branding, your personal branding, your company branding, NerdBrand is definitely a company that I would recommend. And then once you figure out what your brand is, you can come to me and I'll help you with your social. So, but Jason, thank you so much for being here. I hope everyone will join me next week. I will be back from Content Marketing World, and my guest will be the one, the only Madeline Sklar. If you're on Twitter and you don't know Madeline Sklar, I don't believe that you're actually on Twitter. So you can look her up. Thursdays, 1 p.m. Twitter Smarter is her tweet chat. She also has a Twitter space that's late in the afternoon on Thursdays. So anything you want to know about Twitter, even what it is and how to do it, Madeline Sklar is the person. So I'm very excited to have her as my guest, and I'm honored that she's joining me. But Jason, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you around the chamber. Have
All
a
right,
great
I'll
day,
see
my
you.
friend.
Thanks.
All right.